The film opens with a family happily driving through Aswan, Egypt, because nothing says family vacation like a city with ancient curses lurking around every corner. The family consists of the parents, 2 sons, and a daughter named Lila. The father and children are happily listening to music, but the mother appears upset and irritated, so she kills the vibe and stops the music entirely. A short while later, they arrive home, where Layla discovers that someone has severely injured their pet bird. She informs her mother, who is so horrified by the sight that she rescues it from its cage, and then, in perhaps the least reassuring rescue in history, crushes it in her hand. The couple then enters a room with a small pyramid at its center, opens a basement door, and descends with lamps into a dark underground chamber. There, they find a black stone coffin. The husband asks how they will know when the right time has come, to which the wife replies that they will simply have to check. Using chains and pulleys, he slowly lifts the heavy coffin lid. The wife instructs him to open it just enough so she can look inside. As the lid parts slightly, she peers in by lamplight and finds a mummy lying there. The husband, alarmed, asks if it is awake, but suddenly, her lamp goes out. Terrified, she scrambles to relight it with a lighter. When the husband asks again whether it is awake, she turns and says no, but the moment she looks back inside, the mummy attacks her. At that same instant, chains slam into the husband's face, and a thorn embedded in one of them lodges in his jaw. The coffin is hurled into the air, and he is killed. The wife then hears violent noises erupting from within the coffin, and the scene ends. We are then introduced to another family living in Cairo, Egypt, happy, loving, and blissfully unaware of what is coming for them. The father, Charlie, is a TV news reporter and investigator. He lives with his pregnant wife, Lisa, and their 2 children, daughter Katie and son Sebastian. It is also established that Charlie and Katie share a charming secret. They often communicate in Morse code, which will turn out to be far more useful than either of them expected. One day, while Lisa is at work, Charlie is home with the children. Feeling distressed about something, Katie wanders off alone to play in the garden. Just then, a strange woman standing near the garden's floodlights calls out to her. Katie assumes it is her friend Layla, but the woman reveals she is actually Layla's mother. Katie asks where Layla is. The woman says she is sick and adds warmly that Layla treasures Katie's friendship. It is at this point that the audience recognizes her as the same woman from the film's opening, which is not exactly a reassuring sign. Katie mentions that Layla once told her that her mother is a magician. Hearing this, the woman immediately offers to show her a trick. She performs several impressive demonstrations that delight Katie. Meanwhile, inside the house, Charlie is on the phone with Lisa when he discovers several candy wrappers hidden inside Katie's dollhouse. He asks Lisa if she has been secretly giving Katie candy. She denies it. Outside, however, the scene reveals the truth. The woman has been giving Katie the candy all along. After accepting the candy, Katie politely says she should go inside, but the woman stops her and tells her there is something else she grows in her garden, something sweeter than any candy, and hands her an apple. Back inside, Charlie asks Sebastian if he knows anything about the candies. Sebastian explains that Katie has a secret friend who visits the far end of the garden regularly. Outside, Katie takes the apple. The woman says she hopes Katie will forgive her. Katie asks what for. The woman says it is for her last magic trick, and then begins chanting a strange mantra. Suddenly, a worm emerges from the apple and flies straight into Katie's mouth. Katie immediately begins coughing and choking violently, then collapses to the ground. Charlie comes running into the garden, but upon reaching Katie's play area, he finds her gone and the floodlights partially broken. Frantically, he searches outside. Katie is nowhere to be found. Then, a massive sandstorm rolls in. Through the storm, Charlie catches a glimpse of a woman running away while carrying a small girl. He gives chase, but the storm swallows the woman entirely. Disoriented and panicking, Charlie screams Katie's name into the wind. The scene shifts to a police station, where Charlie and Lisa speak with Officer Jockey. During questioning, Lisa reveals she was at work while Charlie was home with the children. Charlie states he last saw Katie at Pretty Neon. Lisa then presents the candy wrappers found hidden in Katie's dollhouse as evidence. Jackie's superior officer speaks to her in their shared native language, privately suspecting that Katie's own parents may have harmed her, not realizing that Charlie understands every word. Enraged, Charlie erupts at both Jackie and her superior, and the scene ends in chaos. The film then jumps forward 8 years. Katie is still missing. The family has relocated to Mexico, and the weight of loss is etched into everything, particularly Lisa, who still carries deep grief for Katie every single day. The couple now has another daughter, named Ma. Lisa's mother, Carmen, also lives with them. During dinner, a now-grown Sebastian shows his mother information about a school trip to Europe. Lisa refuses to let him go. Distressed, Sebastian accuses her of refusing out of fear that something bad might happen, and bitterly reminds her that he is not Katie. The words sting deeply, and he storms away from the table. The following morning, the scene moves to Egypt Egypt's eastern desert. A man is cycling when his chain suddenly breaks. He stops to fix it, and a plane crashes behind him. He panics and runs toward the wreckage, where he finds burning debris and a corpse. Then his gaze falls on a severed eyeball on the ground. When he looks up, he sees a body hanging from a tree, a branch piercing its eye. The man, understandably deciding this is enough for one morning, turns and runs, only to stumble and find himself face to face with a black basalt coffin. Authorities are notified of the crash, and 2 archaeologists are sent to examine the strange coffin. They lift its heavy lid and discover a mummy inside. Peeling back the wrappings reveals strange markings and writing on the cloth. And beneath another layer, a horrifying, demon-like hand. The archaeologists continue documenting and removing the layers until, finally, the bandages fall away entirely, and beneath them is a small girl in a terrifying state. She suddenly breathes heavily. A worm crawls from her mouth, and she begins to shiver and scream violently before the scene cuts away. Charlie is then shown having a good day with his family. Then his phone rings. A man named Bryce, representing the U.S. Embassy in Cairo as Deputy Chief of Mission, informs him that Katie has been found alive. Charlie and Lisa immediately step out of the car, and when the words fully land, tears fill their eyes. They embrace in stunned relief and leave immediately to meet her. Before they enter, however, a doctor prepares them for what they are about to see. He explains that Katie has suffered severe skin damage, likely from years without sunlight combined with extreme malnourishment. She is trapped in a deep catatonic state that causes sudden violent movements, strange noises, and unpredictable tremors. Although she is under heavy sedation, her condition remains serious. Everyone must treat her with the utmost calm and gentleness. The doctor opens the door. After 8 years, Charlie and Lisa finally see their daughter, and both are visibly shaken because she looks nothing like she once did. They sit beside her and try to speak, but Katie does not respond. Charlie notices deep scratches all over her face. The doctor explains they are self-inflicted. Lisa lovingly takes Katie's hand and listens to her heartbeat. The doctor suggests that a home environment might aid her recovery. Then, unexpectedly, Katie reaches out her hand. Charlie gently takes it, but suddenly, Katie seizes both their hands in a vice-like grip and begins breathing heavily. In a subsequent scene, Officer Jockey shows Charlie and Lisa photographs of the basalt coffin recovered near the crash site. She explains it is believed to be between 2,000 and 3,000 years old, and that Katie was being transported inside it when the plane went down. Charlie is stunned. Jackie explains that hiding a person or object within a historical artifact is one of the safest methods of smuggling. It rarely raises suspicion. She promises Charlie she will do a far better job finding those responsible than her former superior officer managed. In the next scene, Charlie and Lisa bring Katie home. Lisa's mother and Carmen are excited to meet her, but fall silent the moment they see her condition. Charlie and Lisa carry her upstairs with great effort and finally lay her down on the bed. Carmen begins to pray over her. Katie immediately fixes her attention on Carmen, and she does not look pleased. Carmen lovingly kisses her forehead, but the moment she says amen, Katie suddenly headbutts her, drawing blood. Katie then begins shaking and screaming violently, breathing heavily, before collapsing onto the bed, only to begin writhing in agony again moments later. Charlie quickly restrains her while Lisa administers a sedative. Katie eventually calms down. Later that night, while everyone is asleep, Mother's strange, thumping sounds, the kind of sounds that make you wish you had never left the light on in the hallway. She wakes Sebastian and tells him about the noises. He initially suggests they might be coyotes outside, but then the sounds return and both of them freeze. It sounds as though something is running through the service corridor built into the walls. At that same moment, Charlie comes upstairs and discovers Katie has vanished from her bed. He desperately asks Lisa where she is. Sebastian picks up a baseball bat for protection. The service corridor door then begins rattling violently on its own. Sebastian approaches it slowly, and at that moment, his parents burst into the room. He tells them something is moving inside the walls. Lisa opens the service corridor door to investigate, and Katie suddenly bolts past everyone, startling them all. Lisa follows her into the dark corridor and spots her crouched in a far corner. Katie immediately runs, and Lisa gives chase through the darkness, but Katie moves with an inhuman speed that no person should possess, and Lisa cannot keep up. Charlie enters the corridor from the opposite end, hoping to cut Katie off, but instead, Lisa emerges on his side, asking frantically whether he has seen her. He has not. They both then spot a scorpion on the floor nearby, and before either of them can react, Katie snatches it up and begins eating it right in front of them. Sebastian watches in terror. After an enormous struggle, they manage to subdue Katie and attempt to make her vomit. She promptly produces a vast and deeply unpleasant quantity of dark green liquid. The following morning, Lisa and Carmen are cleaning and caring for Katie when Lisa notices her legs and realizes that Katie's toenails have grown extraordinarily long and hard. She begins clipping them, but they resist the clippers entirely. When she finally cuts the large toenail, a strip of skin comes away with it. Both Lisa and Carmen recoil in horror as more skin begins to peel from Katie's leg. Meanwhile, Charlie is sealing the service corridor door in Katie's room when he notices a terrible smell. He lifts the rug and discovers a strange, sticky substance beneath it. At that moment, Lisa screams and he races toward her. He finds that Katie has attacked both Lisa and Carmen and fled. Charlie quickly locates her, crawling rapidly down the staircase. For a brief moment, he watches from above, but the instant Katie spots him, she vanishes again. He hears movement inside the walls, follows it carefully, and finds a bloody handprint on the wall. As he moves forward, Katie suddenly appears behind him, savagely tearing at her own leg with a metal rod. The scene shifts. Lisa is bandaging Katie's wounds while Charlie suggests they may need to find another place for Katie, as her behavior has become dangerous for everyone. Lisa insists that Katie is safest at home and that the doctors recommended exactly this. Charlie counters that until they know what truly happened to her, they cannot really help her. Their argument gradually becomes deeply personal. Lisa blames Charlie for Katie's kidnapping. Charlie points out that if he had taken Katie's secret garden friend more seriously from the start, none of this might have happened. Devastated and furious, Lisa retreats to Katie's room and slams the door. She begs Katie to speak. When Katie does not respond, Lisa's desperation tips into shouting, and Katie, without expression, simply spits on her. Later, when Charlie picks up Katie's overturned wheelchair, he finds a piece of parchment caught in the wheels, the same material that had earlier peeled away from Katie's leg. He examines it carefully, peeling back several layers, and can clearly see that it is covered in writing from a very ancient language. This leads him to Bixler, an archaeology professor at an Albuquerque community college. Charlie tells Bixler he is researching Egyptian hieroglyphs for a news segment, technically not entirely false, and shows him photographs of the layered parchment. Bixler identifies the script as hieratic, considered the earliest cursive script of ancient Egypt. He asks where Charlie found it. Charlie deflects and instead asks whether it can be decoded. That night, Charlie sits beside Katie in her room. She is constantly clicking her teeth together in an irregular rhythm. Charlie leans in to comfort her and tearfully apologizes. Then he notices something. The clicking follows a pattern. He realizes, with a jolt, that she is communicating in Morse code. He grabs a pen and paper and begins transcribing the sounds. He then retrieves Katie's old trunk from storage and finds a Morse code guidebook inside. He decodes the pattern and discovers that Katie has been repeating one word over and over: Layla. Charlie immediately brings this to Officer Jockey. She asks whether anyone named Layla ever contacted the family after Katie's disappearance. In response, Charlie opens a large trunk filled with dozens of postcards and letters, all sent by well-wishers after Katie went missing. Among them, he finds an envelope bearing the same distinctive candy wrapper design used to lure Katie. The postcard is from a girl named Layla Khalil. In it, she writes that she is deeply sorry and that she never wanted any of this to happen to her best friend. Charlie shares this with Jackie, who immediately works with a colleague to locate Layla Khalil. She traces the origin of the postcard and sets out alone to investigate the address. The scene then shifts back to Charlie and Professor Bixler's second meeting. Bixler explains that the writing appears to be a form of ceremonial binding. He tells Charlie that one word appears repeatedly throughout the parchment found in Katie's skin: Nazarenian. Charlie asks what it means. To explain, Bixler plays a recording from an international lecture on ancient Egyptian demonology delivered at Al-Azhar University. The recording describes Nazarenian as a dark force that people feared even before language existed to name such things. It moved among the living like a shadow, turning fathers against sons, compelling mothers to bury their own children. It was called the destroyer of families. It spread like a sickness of the soul, replacing love with suspicion and cruelty, and wiped out entire communities. Then, around 2000 BC, all records of it abruptly vanish. According to a final account, the demon was either imprisoned through an ancient ritual or simply disappeared. After the recording ends, Bixler tells Charlie that the binding inscriptions he found are protective in nature, designed to keep this lost demon contained. Charlie is shaken. He begins to fear that Nazarenian has somehow entered Katie. Meanwhile, under the demon's influence, Mother begins shouting obscenities at a school teacher, which Katie watches with visible satisfaction, smiling quietly. Officer Jockey finally arrives at Layla Khalil's house. She knocks but receives no answer. Finding a door ajar, she carefully enters and begins searching what appears to be an empty home. She eventually finds a room containing a small pyramid, and her foot catches on a chain. When When she pulls it, a hidden cellar door opens in the floor. At that same moment, Layla's mother returns home. Jackie descends into the cellar and reaches the same underground chamber shown at the beginning of the film, where Layla's parents had concealed a mummy. She comes back up and walks into another room, where Layla's mother is waiting, holding a gun. Jackie orders her to surrender. The woman bolts, then turns and charges at Jackie. Left with no choice, Jackie shoots her. She frantically demands to know what they did to Katie and why they took her. Then, outside the house, a young girl appears. The moment she spots Jackie inside, she panics and runs. Jackie gives chase and catches up to the girl, who has stopped and begun digging at the ground with her bare hands. Jackie fires a warning shot into the air. The girl freezes and holds up a small box. Jackie orders her to set it down. When Jackie carefully opens it, she finds a VHS tape labeled Katie. The girl then reveals herself to be Layla Khalil. Back in Katie's room, Carmen is still praying quietly at her side. Without warning, Katie bites her hand viciously and lunges at her, telling her she can stop her heart from beating. Terrified, Carmen shoves her away and tries to flee, but the bedroom door slams shut on its own. Katie's voice then comes softly from somewhere behind her, saying she is standing right there. When Carmen spins around, the room appears empty. Then Katie's wheelchair begins moving on its own. Moments later, Katie appears behind Carmen and shoves her hard to the ground, sending Carmen's dentures skidding across the floor. As Carmen struggles to rise, Katie laughs with a terrible sound. The crucifix necklace around Carmen's throat begins to tighten on its own, strangling her and lifting her off the floor. Katie calmly tells her not to be afraid, that dying is quite fine actually. She then blows on Carmen, who is hurled through the window and crashes down onto Charlie's car below. Charlie and Sebastian are horrified. Moments later, Lisa rushes into the room and finds Katie sleeping peacefully near the shattered window. Outside, coyotes have gathered around Carmen's body and begin to attack her as her screams echo through the neighborhood. Lisa watches in paralyzed terror. The scene shifts to Officer Jackie, who is watching the VHS tape labeled Katie. In the recording, Layla's mother speaks to the camera, her voice eventually audible once Jackie finds the remote and raises the volume. She states that a young innocent child makes the ideal vessel because their body endures far longer, though any living person will suffice. She then begins performing a deeply disturbing ritual, which leaves Jackie visibly shaken. Jackie then visits Layla, who is now in custody. She demands to know what was happening on the tape. Layla responds by showing her that her tongue has been cut out. Jackie asks whether her mother did this. Layla nods. She communicates that she once tried to tell the truth and was punished for it. When Jackie asks what the truth was, Layla explains that Katie was never supposed to be removed from the box. Their region was going to be flooded, and her brother had no choice but to relocate it. But the box had never been moved before, and shortly afterward his plane crashed. Layla then asks for something to write with and quickly scribbles a note. The moment Jackie reads it, she immediately tries to call Charlie, but he does not answer. In the next scene, Carmen's wake is being held. Mother behaves strangely throughout, staring at the ceiling before deliberately pulling out one of her own teeth and spitting blood onto the guest's food. Charlie sits outside Katie's room while Sebastian comes to get him. Charlie tells Lisa that Katie is calm for now and that Sebastian is keeping watch. Through tears, Lisa tells Charlie she no longer wants Katie in the house. At that same moment, Sebastian hears strange sounds coming from Katie's room. He approaches the door nervously, but just as he turns to leave, Katie calls out to him in a sweet voice, asking him to let her out so she can join the gathering downstairs. Sebastian flees to his own room and puts on headphones. Even so, Katie's voice finds him, blaming him for everything, including what happened to their grandmother. Shortly afterward, Mother is shown to have removed all her own teeth. She stares up at the ceiling as the hall above begins to crack apart and Katie starts forcing her way through it. Seeing this, the mother smiles. She walks to Carmen's casket, pulls out a strand from Carmen's mouth, retrieves the false teeth, presses them into her own mouth, and grins. Meanwhile, Katie fully descends into the hall and begins crawling across the ceiling. The mother suddenly attacks a nearby guest, lunging for their throat. Charlie and Lisa rush to intervene. At that moment, Katie drops into Carmen's open casket. When Lisa notices it moving, she goes to investigate and finds Katie feeding on Carmen's neck. The casket topples in the commotion, and Katie drops to the floor and begins licking the spilled blood. The scene is, to put it mildly, a lot. That night, Katie is strapped to her wheelchair while Charlie watches over her in her room. She sits making strange, convulsive movements. It then becomes clear that she is controlling Sebastian remotely. He is in his room, laughing in a disturbing way and slamming his head repeatedly against his headboard. Then Officer Jackie arrives at the house. At that same moment, Katie flings the wheelchair into the air and crashes it to the floor, startling Charlie violently. Lisa opens the front door for Jackie, Jackie, who tells them that the tape reveals the truth of what happened to Katie. Jackie plays the recording and translates as Lila's mother speaks. She explains that Katie was kidnapped by this woman, who interpreted signs as an instruction that the time had come to reseal their ancient family secret. She says this will be the 82nd mummification ritual, and that, as the firstborn, she bears responsibility for protecting their family line from the evil of Nazarenian. She is recording this so that future generations will understand how to transfer the demon from an old host into a new one. An innocent child, she explains again, is ideal for longevity, though any living person will do. The ritual then begins on tape. Masked figures stand around the room as Layla's mother pulls back a white cloth to reveal Katie underneath, who is weeping and begging to be released. Charlie and Lisa can barely watch. The tape then shows the current host, a mummy, being brought forward. The masked figures hold Katie down on top of it. Layla's mother puts on her own mask and begins chanting an incantation, which Jackie begins carefully memorizing. Back in the present, Katie, having gained control of Sebastian, has him break open a small access panel in his room. He then begins tearing the remaining scripture-covered bandages from Katie's skin, while Katie pulls at them herself. It becomes clear that these written bindings were all that had been restraining Nazarenian. With each strip removed, the demon grows more powerful. On the tape, the mummy suddenly stirs. A black liquid pours from its mouth into Katie's, completing the transfer of the demon into her body. Layla's mother then wraps Katie in the sacred inscribed bandages and seals her inside the coffin. The cult's plan was to keep Katie alive inside it until she died of old age, a plan that the plane crash disrupted entirely, leaving the ritual incomplete. After watching the tape, Charlie and Lisa are shattered. As the recording ends, Lisa quietly rises and walks away. In Katie's room, Katie has now removed every last scripture binding from her body. Lisa heads toward the door, while downstairs, Carmen's corpse sits up inside the casket. Jackie notices that Charlie is in shock and unresponsive. She runs upstairs to help Lisa. Outside, a massive sandstorm erupts. In the room, Katie begins transforming into something monstrous and rises into the air. Downstairs, the television switches off on its own, snapping Charlie back to awareness. He sees something that looks horrifyingly like Carmen sitting behind the dining table, beckoning to him. Lisa screams from upstairs, and Charlie sprints up. Katie's door drifts open. She is floating. Then she drops and launches herself at Charlie, attacking his throat. She flings Jackie down the staircase. Then she turns on Lisa. She attacks Charlie again, slamming her head into him repeatedly. Lisa runs for a sedative injection, but Sebastian, under the demon's control, intercepts her and attacks her. Katie, meanwhile, is strangling Charlie. He somehow manages to throw her off. Then, suddenly, Katie bursts into tears. The next instant, she is laughing horribly. She tells Charlie she does not enjoy inhabiting his daughter's body anymore. She begins crawling toward him. Badly injured, Charlie tries to back away, but she keeps coming. Slowly, she tells him he will never get his daughter back, because now she is going to be his father. The threat fills Charlie with rage. He tries to stand and falls. Downstairs, a black liquid falls on Jackie, jolting her awake. Carmen's reanimated body pins her foot to the floor. Then a scorpion crawls from Carmen's mouth and forces its way down Jackie's throat, beginning to choke her. Carmen laughs horribly as Jackie struggles. Finally, Jackie kicks Carmen away, but the scorpion's tail tears through her throat on the way out. In searing pain, Jackie reaches into her own mouth and, with enormous effort, drags it free. Upstairs, Sebastian, still possessed, is pursuing Lisa, but she finally manages to inject him with the sedative. Meanwhile, Katie continues her terrible advance on Charlie. He spots Jackie coming up the stairs and calls out to her, asking if she remembers the incantation from the tape. She nods. He helps pull her up, and they move quickly into another room. Katie charges after them, but Jackie gets the door shut just in time. Charlie signals Jackie to move away from the door. The moment she does, it explodes inward, and Katie attacks Charlie again. Jackie tries to recite the incantation, but the wound in her throat makes speech nearly impossible. She forces herself onward through the pain, one hand pressed to her neck, chanting the words regardless. Katie continues attacking Charlie, but he holds on. As Jackie approaches the final words of the incantation, the demon begins to leave Katie's body. Charlie looks over at Lisa and softly apologizes to her. Jackie completes the spell. A black liquid pours from Katie's mouth and into Charlie's. The demon transfers. Charlie collapses immediately. In the the final scene, Charlie and Katie are lying on the floor together, holding hands. Katie, freed at last, softly calls out for her mother. Lisa is overwhelmed with relief and joy. It is the first time she has heard Katie's voice in 8 years, but the fear is not finished, because the demon now lives in Charlie. The next scene shows Charlie being sealed inside a coffin, imprisoned within it much as Katie once was. Nearby, a recovered Katie taps out a message to him in Morse code. She loves him. There is silence. Then from inside the coffin, Charlie taps back. Katie joyfully tells Lisa that he is saying he loves them all. She taps a reply. They love him too. Life gradually returns to something resembling normal. Katie is shown playing happily with Sebastian and her mother. Sometime later, Lisa calls Officer Jackie and says she wants to talk about Charlie. The scene shifts to a prison cell where a woman is chained to a bed. When she turns around, it is Layla's mother, having survived Jackie's shooting, now imprisoned. A nurse enters. Layla's mother complains irritably that she is late. The nurse injects something into her throat and then removes her disguise, revealing herself to be Lisa. She asks Layla's mother if she remembers her Katie. Then she asks, would she like to see a trick? At that moment, Jackie reels Charlie in, now in a mummy-like state. Layla's mother is horrified. Jackie tells her coldly that she will certainly remember what happens next. She closes the cell door and begins reciting the same incantation, making it unmistakably clear that they are about to transfer the demon from Charlie directly into Layla's mother.